My strategy is not just about, okay, you have ABC account, these are the balances, we divide it in this way, this is how much money you get, good luck. That is not my work. It could be the calm before the storm, but it also could be that both individuals are trying to do the best for their families, right? I find out maybe there's several business interests, or there's a lot of different type of accounts, or they have real estate investments. Well, that creates complexity, and complexity needs an expert. You don't want to resent a spouse because a decision was made, but the intent is not reflected in the documents, and then you find yourself that you couldn't maybe get that asset or that account. If there's no communication, or if your experts are not syncing with what you as an individual want this process to look like, that is a problem. This is the Divorce and Money podcast presented by Ever After Wealth. Marriage is about love. Divorce is about money. And when a marriage ends, the financial decisions come fast. They come while emotions are running high, and the mistakes made in those moments can follow you for decades. This is where I come in. My name is Gabriella Martinelli, founder of Ever After Wealth and a private divorce financial strategist. I created the E.A.W divorce strategy framework to bring my clients financial clarity and real strategy through one of the hardest events of their lives. On this podcast, I am sharing what I have learned in more than 2 decades inside the divorce system, what nobody is telling you about the process. You will find what you need to protect your legacy, hold on to the wealth you have built, and keep short-term emotions from driving decisions that carry long-term consequences. You do not have to walk into this blind. You do not have to walk through this alone. You will get through this. All you need is your own strategy and a plan. Welcome to Season 2 of the Divorce and Money podcast. This is Gabriella Martinelli, founder of Ever After Wealth and private divorce financial strategist. And I'm very excited to be here with you again after the summer break. I am excited for what has happened and the things that I have planned for the podcast as I'm helping you navigate this overwhelming process.
So you presented at several conferences over the break. How was that? Tell us about it.
Yes, I did. And it was actually great. It was a great experience. And I really enjoy presenting at conferences because most of the work that I do has to do with education. So whether that is the individuals going through this process or the professionals that are helping them, I'm always trying to help them understand more of the process, help them understand the options that are out there, what next steps can be taken, and how to really help the individuals going through this process. So it was great, and honestly generated a lot of ideas, not just for the firm and how we're going to be helping individuals, but also what I want to present for everyone that is listening, because I think that that is the key of the program. And it's the most important thing that individuals need, which is information, but not just information, is accurate information so they can make better decisions as they move forward with this very, very complicated process.
For anybody that's tuning in for the first time, tell us about who you are and what Ever After Wealth actually does.
I am the founder of Ever After Wealth, and after 15 years of working in the legal world of divorce, I realized that one of the biggest challenges that individuals had was understanding the finances of divorce. That was the idea under what Ever After Wealth was created. Though when I left the legal field, I went straight into the financial world to learn everything there was to learn about that. And I realized when I became a certified divorce financial analyst that there was a big conflict of interest between the firms that do financial planning and the CDFA work, which is very much so just working during the divorce planning process. However, that is not all that I do. After 23 years in this process, I realized when we think about divorce, individuals tend to think I need an attorney. I believe that divorce is a high-stakes financial restructuring disguised as just a legal event, constantly hijacked by emotions. And I think that that was the biggest part that we're all missing here. We have individuals that are smart. They're trying to do the best they can, but they believe that an attorney is going to help them to make all of the decisions they have to make during this process and help them understand the decisions they're making. But that is because of that belief that divorce is a legal event. And I'm not saying it's not. It is. It is the break of a contract, but it's also a event that is going to reshape the financial situation for both individuals and their families. As such, you need the experts to work you through that while they understand that the emotions that you're feeling are going to affect those decisions you're making as well. And that's how Ever After Wealth was born. And I do concentrate on doing divorce financial strategy only. I created my own framework, which is the E.A.W framework, to help individuals not just understand the finances, but also their emotions. The emotions are sometimes influencing these decisions that, by the way, you are going to have to make. You can avoid these decisions during the divorce process. And if you do, you're going to allow a third party, meaning a judge, to make these decisions for you and your family. So it's very important that you understand what you are doing.
Even though the divorce process can be complex, it doesn't mean it has to be full of conflict. So, what does that mean, and why does it matter to someone whose divorce feels calm? Is it the calm before the storm, or can it stay calm?
That is a great question. So it could be both. It could be the calm before the storm, but it also could be that both individuals are trying to do the best for their families, right? So if you're dealing with potentially a marriage there was not abuse, let's say it was not abuse, and both individuals in this marriage decided that the best thing to do for them and their family is to just go their separate ways. Maybe nobody's trying to take advantage of the other one. Nobody's trying to take an upper hand or take everything from the other or keep everything from the other. It could be amicable. It could be calm. It could be something that is minimal conflict, if you will, which it can be. Ideally, it would always be like that. Obviously, we're human beings, and the emotions, like I just said, they run very high, and sometimes it's difficult to do. So yes, it could be some two individuals that are trying to go through this process without conflict. But that doesn't mean there's not complexity. And I think that's where the biggest errors come, because when I talk to individuals that are going through the process and they want to have a conversation with me, and we have that initial call, sometimes the first things they say to me is like, oh, well, but there's no conflict, so I really don't think we need anyone to help us because we're doing this amicably. Then when we start talking or I ask more questions, I find out maybe there's several business interests, or there's a lot of different type of accounts, or they have real estate investments. Well, that creates complexity, and complexity needs an expert to help both individuals, or one, to understand what they're looking into, what the finances really mean for them, what each potential division scenario will land with each of them, depending where they are or they're going in their lives. So just because there is no conflict doesn't mean there's not complexity. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges for individuals that feel they're going through this process in a friendly way. And they think, oh, we can do this because we're not fighting each other. And that is totally okay. And again, ideal. However, you do need an individual that helps you not only understand what you're doing, right? Because when you're dealing with a divorce, you're really not just with financial decisions that are affected by financial rules. You have the law to take into consideration. And of course, I don't offer legal advice. I am not an attorney. However, I understand how the law will look at things. And I help individuals, for example, say, okay, great, you want to make this division, you want to divide this certain way. Let me help you understand why the language potentially in your separation agreement is not going to accomplish the intent, because it has to be done correctly. So, for example, a financial institution or maybe the IRS has to understand that this is done because of a divorce, and the intention has to be reflected in the legal document for you to accomplish what you think you want to accomplish. So yes, conflict is ideal. It doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes we have, conflict and complexity, which makes things a little bit harder. But if you have complexity, just because you're working with an expert doesn't mean you are trying to create conflict when there isn't. It doesn't mean you're not trying to be friendly anymore. It just means you want to make sure that your intention is reflected in the division. And as such, you need a professional to help you with that. So that's a big one for me. I'm a big fan of, yes, let's go through this with the least conflict possible if that's an opportunity or is a venue for these individuals. But complexity, don't let that confuse you, because if you make this decision thinking, we got this because we're being friendly, you may end up in a different situation where it can actually bring up bad feelings also, because you don't want to resent a spouse because a decision was made, but the intent is not reflected in the documents. And then you find yourself that you couldn't maybe get that asset or that account. And it had nothing to do with the person or the other spouse trying to not being friendly. It's because it was complex.
What's the difference between a strategy and a report? And when does a report even come into play?
That's a great question, because I often talk to my clients and I try to explain to them when they say, well, what kind of report will I get? Well, I am not in the business of creating reports just because a lot of the times I can create a very beautiful report in an Excel spreadsheet, and individuals will look at them and they'll look at me and said, what does this mean? Because the reality is that I exist to explain to individuals, to help them understand what the financial accounts they have, the whatever assets they have, how they could be divided, why they could be divided one way and not the other, how to prevent issues with this division, whether it is taxes or what will happen in the future, etc. That cannot be accomplished just in a report. If I don't explain that to my clients, they will not understand. My strategy goes beyond the numbers. My strategy is not just about, okay, you have ABC account, these are the balances, we divide in this way, this is how much money you get, good luck. That is not my work. I am a strategist because of the time that I have worked in the legal side and the years I have worked in the financial side of divorce help me understand the process better. I understand what a judge will look at, how an attorney will look at something. I can even anticipate what an attorney will need or want, or how they will present a strategy. And that helps me prepare my client for that strategy. So a lot of the times when I'm being told I need a report, well, you need a strategy. They may be a summary, they may be a report, but I think it's very important to understand that you don't need a report. Usually, who needs a report is an attorney. And a lot of the times we get confused there because an attorney wants to see a spreadsheet. The attorneys have to see the numbers in a spreadsheet because they can bring their legal strategy to the numbers. But my work is with the client. And if my client doesn't understand what is in the spreadsheet, I have not done my job. So my job is to bring strategy and information and education to my clients. If that means they need a report, well, we can talk about that, what that report will mean. But usually what an attorney would need is very different of what my client would need. Obviously, that is not to say that I don't create reports for attorneys, because I do testify in court as an expert witness. And I'm actually preparing for a couple cases that are going to court in October, and I will be testifying for the attorneys. Yes, that requires a lot of reports that had to be presented to a judge and to the opposing side. So I had to really be very careful with those reports and the information I put there, because I will testify on behalf of that attorney. But I am not the expert that brings you just a report and sends you your way, because the lack of strategy, the lack of understanding of the process, I think that is the real problem for individuals going through this process. And it has nothing to do with their intelligence. It has to do with the process being very complex and overwhelming, and no one taking the time to explain it to the individuals going through it.
You talk about the moving parts in a divorce. How do you assist your clients with working through all of those moving parts?
That is the hardest part for a divorce, because like what I said in the beginning, there's this misconception that divorce is a legal event. Usually individuals think, okay, I'm going through a divorce, you're going through a divorce, call an attorney and they can help you with that. Unfortunately, that's not how really attorneys should be looked into, because I just mentioned divorce is just disguised as a legal event. But there's a lot of moving parts, because we have the emotional side of things. We have the financial side of things. We have different components within itself. You have potentially the kids side of things, right? If you have young kids, or even if you have older kids, you have to deal with the emotions of the family as one's being divided. The problem is that when you come to the one person, let's say the attorney, and you think that they are going to take care of all of those moving parts within this divorce, that's where the problem begins, because they are the legal experts. You need them. They have to be part of your process, but they cannot be the only ones in the process. In my case, because I'm a divorce financial strategist, what I do is try to frame my work to pair with the legal strategy the attorney can have for the case. That means, okay, are they going for certain ways? Is there marital misconduct? Do we need to work through that? Are you the at fault party in this marital misconduct? So we need to look at the numbers that way because we know what the other part may be saying. But we need all of this to be in collaboration, right? Do you have kids? Are they older kids? Are they younger kids? Are we talking custody? One of the things I always advise my clients is if you can resolve custody before you touch the money, you have to do that because unfortunately, a lot of individuals use the kids as a tool or as a weapon to get what they want financially from the other spouse, which, yes, is not the way we want things to go, but you want to remove the ability of someone to push you to make a certain decision based on whether you see your kids or not, which unfortunately happens all the time. So the idea that this attorney can come and create everything, maybe it happened before, but there's a lot of moving parts nowadays, and you need to be sure you have the right experts. But you also need to understand that these experts have to work together. If there's no communication, or if your experts are not syncing with what you as an individual want this process to look like, that is a problem. And that's why I call my work strategy, because it's not just about giving you a number, doing some math, and send you your way. No, we need to strategize so every moving part of this divorce is taken care of, because at the end of the day, it's going to result in you having the best decision and the best resolution as you move forward.
And lastly, tell us what to expect on this season of Divorce and Money.
Oh, there's going to be a lot of secrets that is going to be spilled. I am very excited because I have great guests that are coming on board. And we're going to be talking about a lot of things that usually are not talked about. And I decided that you, the listener, deserves to know what the system is not telling you about divorce. I think we're dealing with not just misinformation because of the internet or the social media or AI. There's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of things that I feel like if an individual knew one or two things they could do differently, maybe before they even start the process, it will change the outcome and it will actually better their process while they're going through this divorce crazy, overwhelming life event. So I'm very excited about that because I'm going to share a lot of things and I will not hold back. So you don't want to miss it. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening today. If this episode helped you, please follow the show and give us a rating on whatever platform you're listening. That is the simplest way to make sure the next person searching for answers actually finds us. And if someone comes to mind who could use it, please send it their way. If you're personally going through a separation or divorce, or thinking about it, you can reach us through our website at everafterwealth.com. I would love to have a conversation and create your personalized strategy during this confusing and overwhelming process. I will see you next time.